She grabbed my 7-year-old son's arm and said, "This is what happens when you're not taught boundaries." All because he was playing tag too loudly. That was the moment I realized my entitled neighbor didn't just have opinions. She thought she had authority over my child. I, 35 am a single dad to my son, Liam, 7. His mom left when he was 2, and since then, it's been just the two of us. I work remotely as a software developer, which gives me the flexibility to be hands-on with Liam's school, soccer practice, and daily routine. He's my world, a gentle, thoughtful kid with a mop of curly brown hair and a laugh that lights up even my worst days. We've built a solid life together in our quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio, where the streets are lined with maple trees and kids ride scooters past well-kept lawns. Most neighbors are chill, the kind who wave hello and mind their own business. It's the kind of place I always wanted Liam to grow up in, safe, predictable, a real community. Everything was fine until a new family moved in next door last summer. Enter entitled mom, a woman in her mid-40s, and her 10-year-old son, D. Their moving truck rolled in on a muggy August afternoon, the air thick with the hum of cicadas. I figured I'd be a good neighbor, so I went over to introduce myself, helped them unload a few boxes, and even brought over a batch of chocolate chip cookies Liam and I baked together. Liam was proud of those cookies, carefully placing them on a plate with his little hands. Thanked me profusely, her voice loud and forceful, like she was trying to command the conversation. She wasn't rude, just intense, with a way of speaking that felt rehearsed, like she'd memorized lines from a parenting seminar. D, a wiry kid with a buzz cut, barely looked up from his phone, muttering a shy hi before disappearing inside. At first, things seemed normal. Liam and D met a few days later when Liam was riding his bike out front. They started playing occasionally, kickball in the cul-de-sac, trading Pokemon cards on our porch. I was happy for Liam. He's shy and doesn't make friends easily. But I started noticing D's behavior. He was aggressive, bossing Liam around during games, shouting if Liam didn't follow his rules, and once even shoving him during a race. Liam came home one day, eyes red and teary, saying D called him stupid and babyish for not wanting to climb a tree. It broke my heart. Liam's the kind of kid who'd rather read about space than roughhouse, and I could see D's attitude was crushing him. I sat Liam down that night, over his favorite mac and cheese dinner, and told him he didn't have to play with anyone who made him feel bad. I taught him a few phrases to stand up for himself, like, "That's not okay," and encouraged him to walk away if D got mean. I also stopped inviting D over, hoping to let the friendship fizzle out naturally. That's when started getting opinionated. It started with small comments whenever she saw me with Liam. I'd be pushing him on the swing in our backyard, and she'd lean over the fence, her voice sharp. "You're letting him eat that?" At that age, it was a granola bar. Or we'd be walking home from the bus stop, Liam chattering about planets, and she'd call out, "Don't you think it's time he stopped using such a baby voice?" Once, when I was teaching Liam to ride his bike without training wheels, she watched from her porch and shouted, "You should be firmer. Boys need to know authority." I'd grit my teeth, give a tight smile, and move on. As a single dad, I'm used to unsolicited advice, grandmas at the grocery store, random dads at soccer practice. But EM's comments felt different. They weren't suggestions, they were judgments, delivered with a smug certainty that made my skin crawl. Then things escalated. One crisp September afternoon, Liam and I were playing soccer in our front yard, the grass still damp from morning dew. He was giggling, chasing the ball with his clumsy, enthusiastic kicks. One wild shot sent the ball soaring over the wooden fence into EM's yard. Liam's face fell. He hated messing up, so I ruffled his hair and said we'd get it back. He asked me to come with him, his voice small, like he sensed something off. We walked over, knocked on EM's door, and politely asked if we could grab the ball. EM opened the door, her arms crossed, eyes narrowing at Liam. "You're too old to be making mistakes like that," she said, her tone icy. "If you were my son, you'd be grounded." Liam shrank behind me, clutching my hand. I forced a calm smile and said, "He's 7. Accidents happen." She stepped closer, her voice low and pointed. "That's your problem. You coddle him. He needs to be disciplined properly." I felt a surge of anger but kept my cool, thanked her, and grabbed the ball from her backyard. As we walked away, Liam whispered, "Why is she so mean?" I didn't have a good answer. I hoped that would be the end of it. Update 1, 1 week later. I should have known better. A week later, Liam had a playdate with 3 school friends, 2 boys and a girl, all 7 or 8, sweet kids who loved running around our backyard. It was a sunny Saturday, the kind where the air smells like cut grass and laughter carries down the street. They were playing tag, shrieking and dodging between the swings and our old oak tree. I was inside, slicing apples and making peanut butter sandwiches, when I heard shouting, not the playful kind. I rushed outside and saw Em standing in my yard, hands on her hips, berating the kids. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the air like a whip. "You're screaming too loud. You're not respecting the neighborhood." She zeroed in on Liam, who was frozen mid-step, and grabbed his arm, grabbed him, saying, "This is what happens when you're not taught boundaries." My vision went red. I sprinted over, yanking her hand off my son, my voice shaking with rage. "Get your hands off him and get off my property. Now." She didn't back down. Her face twisted, and she unleashed a tirade. "You're raising a future delinquent. Boys need male discipline, not this weak parenting." Then, unbelievably, she added, "You should let Dee teach him how to behave." I was floored. Let her aggressive 10-year-old teach my son? I glanced at Dee, who was standing behind her, staring at the ground, clearly mortified. I repeated, louder, "Leave. Now, or I'm calling the police." She stormed off, dragging Dee by the arm, muttering about my failure as a father. The other kids were shaken, and Liam clung to me, his eyes wide. I sent his friends home early, gave Liam ice cream, and spent the evening reassuring him he'd done nothing wrong. That night, I filed a non-emergency police report, detailing the incident and Em's behavior. I wanted a paper trail. The next day, I ordered a full security camera system, front door, backyard, the works. I wasn't taking chances. Update 2, 2 weeks later. I thought confronting her would set a boundary. Nope. Em doubled down. A few days after the playdate incident, I started finding notes in my mailbox. Handwritten on crisp white paper, in her neat, formal script, they were creepy as hell. The first read, "Your son is crying out for structure. You're failing him. I can help." The second, a day later, "Let me show you how to raise a man. Your weakness is going to ruin him." I felt sick reading them, picturing her sneaking over at night to slip them into my mailbox. I saved every one, tucking them into a folder for evidence. I went full no contact. I told Liam not to talk to Dee anymore, explaining that some people aren't safe to be around. He nodded, looking relieved, and said, "Dee's mean anyway." I also called Liam's school, where Dee was in a higher grade, and spoke to the principal. I gave her a heads up about Em's behavior, in case she tried anything there, like approaching Liam on the playground. The principal was understanding, promising to keep an eye out and ensure the boys were separated during recess. Then Em showed up again. It was a chilly evening around 7 p.m., the sky bruised purple with dusk. The doorbell camera pinged my phone, and there she was, standing on my porch, holding a leather belt in one hand. My stomach churned. She looked me dead in the eye through the camera and said, "Let me show you what real parenting looks like. You need help." Her voice was calm, almost instructional, like she was offering to teach me algebra. I didn't open the door. I called the police immediately, my hands shaking as I dialed. They arrived in under 10 minutes, and I showed them everything. The camera footage, the notes, the police report from the playdate incident. The officers were professional, but visibly alarmed. They issued Em a formal warning, telling her to stay away from us or face arrest. The next morning, I filed for a restraining order, meeting with a lawyer who walked me through the process. I felt like I was in a bad movie, but I wasn't taking any more risks with my son's safety. Final update, 1 month later. The restraining order hearing was a week ago. Em showed up in a stiff blazer, her hair pulled back tightly, looking like she was ready to argue a case. She didn't contest the order, probably on advice from someone with sense, and the judge granted it without hesitation. It's a 2-year restraining order. She and Dee must stay 500 feet away from us, our home, and Liam's school, with no contact allowed. Violation means immediate arrest. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks as we left the courthouse. Last week, I saw a for sale sign in Em's yard. I asked another neighbor, an older guy who's lived here forever, and he said Em mentioned moving closer to family. Good riddance. I don't care where she goes, as long as it's far from us. Liam's doing great now. The anxiety he felt after EM's outburst has faded, and he's back to his cheerful self, building Lego spaceships and begging for extra bedtime stories. We've had long talks about personal boundaries, and I've taught him to tell me or a teacher if anyone makes him uncomfortable. He's even started a new after-school art club where he's made a couple of close friends. Seeing him smile again, carefree and confident, makes every sleepless night worth it. This whole ordeal taught me a hard lesson. Just because someone has a kid doesn't mean they're qualified to give parenting advice or be around children at all. EM's obsession with discipline and her son teaching mine was unhinged, and I'm grateful I trusted my gut early on. To all the parents out there, trust your instincts. No one has the right to discipline your kid but you. And if someone shows up with a belt, call the cops.